The shipping industry is vital for the prosperity of people all around the world, as it transports approximately 90% of global trade. Dry bulk carriers account for 43% of the world fleet and carry out approximately 55% of the global transport work, while their average age is half of that of the global commercial fleet. They are the workhorses of international shipping, as they serve essential needs such as food and energy supply. Dry bulk shipping is necessary for maintaining and enhancing living standards in both developed and less developed economies.
Dear members and associates of Intercargo, dear friends of shipping, Kalimera from Athens, good evening Hong Kong, good afternoon London, good morning America. My name is Elias Bisias and I am delighted to welcome you to this webinar that is organized in collaboration with the ISALOSNet initiative in order to celebrate Intercargo's 40th anniversary. Although the Intercargo Board of Directors had originally planned to celebrate this anniversary with special events, unfortunately, for the time being at least, this was not possible. Let us hope that 2021 will be a year when we will all be able to meet and celebrate again. Today we have with us 6 members, current and former, of the Association's board. In this respect, I would like to welcome the Chairman, Mr. Dimitri J. Fafalios, the Honorary Chairman, John Platsidakis, the Vice Chairman, Spyros Tarasis and Uttam Kumar Jaiswal, and the former Vice Chairman, Jay Pillai, and of course the Technical Committee Chairman, John Keenan. However, before we start the conversation, let us watch 2 short videos. The first video is a welcome address by the IMO Secretary General. Let's watch the first video.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be able to address you today and join in the celebration of Intercargo's 40th anniversary. We are celebrating 40 years of Intercargo's commitment to safety and quality in ship operations and protection of the marine environment. These are all ideas that IMO shares, and thus it is with a great pleasure that we join you today. We at IMO have viewed with positive interest the progression of Intercargo over the 40 years from the vision of Anthony J. Chandri to create a forum which would bring together individual dry cargo ship owners for common benefits. A forum where matters of mutual interest and concern could be discussed and resolved to where Intercargo is today. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has meant that 2020 was certainly one of the most challenging and unprecedented years of those 4 decades for all of us. Yet the bulk trade has continued to keep the world supplied with commodities and raw materials thanks to tireless work of seafarers, many of whom have been stranded on ships long past their contracted time due to travel restrictions. The crew change crisis has hit bulk sector particularly hard. We must continue to work together to solve this humanitarian crisis. These efforts will be supported by this year's World Maritime theme, Seafarers at the core of shipping's future. I look forward to accelerating efforts to resolve these issues and raise awareness of seafarers' vital role in world trade. The pandemic is not yet over, but we see shoots of hope with the rollout of vaccination. As we move forward and look ahead to post-COVID recovery, I would like to thank Intercargo for their support and collaboration. The pandemic has shown us just how valuable it is to have within the IMO family a body of non-governmental organizations in consultative status who stand ready to offer their experience, expertise, and support to resolve complex situations. Bulk carriers transport huge loads of dry goods. Since IMO began its work in the 1960s, ensuring the safety of bulk carriers has been of paramount importance. Since Intercargo gained consultative status with IMO in 1993, the association has significantly contributed to IMO, providing expert information in relation to the safe transportation of bulk cargoes and the bulk carriers' design and construction, machinery and operations, incidents and casualty, emissions and human element, amongst many others, as well as supporting IMO's capacity building initiatives. Intercargo was a key player in developing IMO guidance for the instruction of low sulfur fuel oils in 2020, as well as in developing COVID-related guidance, such as crew change protocols. In the coming years, I look forward to continued cooperation as we focus on creating an ever more safe, secure, green, and sustainable shipping industry in a post-pandemic world. The pandemic has illustrated the need for great efficiency. Shipping's sustainability beyond the pandemic will depend on its ability to embrace digitalization and new smart technologies. Cooperation will be vital to enhance the efficiency and sustainability of shipping, facilitating trade and fostering economic recovery and prosperity. Cutting greenhouse gas emissions is going to be a key policy issue in 2021 and beyond. I look to Intercargo to support this work. Moving to low and zero carbon fuel is not going to be easy, but I know by working together we can find solutions. I know I can count on Intercargo to support IMO's work to enable a sustainable post-pandemic recovery and truly sustainable future of shipping. Thank you.
The second video is from Dr. Spyros Polemis, former Intercargo chairman.
By 1980, 10 years had already passed since the formation of Intertanko in 1970, and I remember well how difficult it had been to establish this new association. However, 10 years on, the industry began to accept Intertanko and the benefits of joining. So Anthony Chandris took the initiative of forming Intercargo in 1980. I was one of the founding members. What followed was a real struggle in trying to sell the idea to the shipping community that yet another association was needed, albeit to look after the interests of dry cargo vessels this time. Speaking 40 years after the event, one can see clearly those struggles that took many years to overcome. People were not willing to pay the fees, did not see the necessity of belonging to such an association, and did not see the benefits that would accrue to them. All this is now behind us, but those of us that have been involved from the beginning can readily relate to those years and those difficulties. Money was of course a constant problem, but more importantly, a more difficult problem was justifying the existence of Intercargo. Two events that took place during the 1990s really made a difference in establishing Intercargo. The first such event was that we organized a conference in Hong Kong, I think in 1992, to discuss the reasons why there were so many bulk carrier losses in 1990-1991. The chairman, Frank Chow, asked me to chair the conference. It was a success, primarily because all of the industry players participated. There was a good debate and many unbiased conclusions were reached rather than just blaming shipowners, which was the usual reaction in those years. The second major event, when I was chairman, and I was invited by the Australian government to participate in the Ships of Shame inquiry in September 1994. That gave Intercargo a seat at the table and an opportunity to put matters in a proper light. So although still early on in its life as an organization, Intercargo had begun to make a difference, a task that has now grown and grown to the point that few shipping companies today question the reason for the existence of Intercargo.
As rightly stated in a recent article by today's Intercargo president, Dimitri Fafalios, today dry bulk carriers and their industry overall are not what they were 40 years ago. Quality standards show considerable progress, but still much remains to be done. Today, we celebrate through this webinar Intercargo's creation 40 years ago and honor its creator, Anthony Chandris. We honor as well all presidents and governing boards that allowed this association to be nationally appreciated. The third video is a small presentation on how it all began. The management committee of Intercargo decided in 2017 to carry out a research and to shed light on the history of this association. The results of this effort, which began in 2018 and was completed after 18 months of archival research in London and Athens, were presented in a special edition. In the 1970s, the shipping industry had begun organizing collectively and demanding solutions to many long-standing issues. Along these lines, the interests of the tanker industry were already being promoted by Intertanko. In the mid-1970s, however, the bulk industry did not have its own independent representation in the international fora. The coordinated initiative to create an organization to represent independent bulk carriers' interests would come from Anthony J. Chandris. Chandris was at the time the president of the Union of Greek Shipowners and one of the most respected personalities in the international maritime scene. However, the first thoughts of Chandris on the need to establish Intercargo began to emerge much earlier in the mid-1970s, as Themistoklis Vokos, chairman of Poseidonia Exhibitions, says in his article hosted in this special issue. As Mr. Vokos notes, in 1975, at the Sea Trade Conference organized in Hong Kong, Chandris more than once mentioned the desirability of creating an organization that would address issues of particular relevance to Greek shipowners who had a strong presence in the dry cargo sector. But being an accomplished diplomat and politically savvy, he expressed his concern that this new organization should not be seen as a tool of Greek shipowners or as a Greek lobby, nor did he want it to be. The main problem for bulk carriers at that time was the lack of demand in the crisis track market, which, coupled with excess capacity, led to very low freight rates. In relation to this situation, Chandris would submit to his colleagues a proposal for implementing a layup scheme. His proposal was accepted by the Greek shipowners, while both Scandinavian and Hong Kong shipowners also showed an initial interest. Unfortunately, all proposed layup schemes were eventually not carried out for fear of national antitrust laws. These fears were unfounded according to Chandris, but it was very difficult to convince shipowners of taking this risk. In the beginning of 1978, the future looked bleak for the bulk carriers. After funding a study on the medium and long-term prospects of the dry market, Chandris alerted his colleagues about the shape of things to come. The study was presented at a special meeting chaired by the head of the Union of Greek Shipowners, which took place in Athens in June 1978 and was attended by representatives of 12 national shipowners associations. With this study in their hands, the representatives of the shipowners associations admitted that as far as the supply and demand of global dry cargo ships was concerned, the situation was very serious. They hence decided to set up a new specialized international body. At the same meeting, it was decided to set up a special working group which would include representatives of the national associations of Norway, Sweden, Greece, Hong Kong, and Liberia, and would meet within the next 2 weeks in London to decide how Intercargo would operate. Thus, the two critical milestones in the establishment of Intercargo were the Athens meeting and the ensuing London meeting, both held in June 1978. As regards the launch of the new representative association, the participants at the London meeting declared that this was conditional on the participation of at least 700 ships with a capacity of more than 600 deadweight. The response from dry bulk carrier shipowners seems to have been higher than expected. 861 ships of various nationalities almost immediately applied for membership. At the new meeting of the working group in London in September 1978, the Association of Dry Cargo Shipowners was formally established along the lines of Intertanko. Despite efforts, Intercargo, for various, mostly external reasons, would not be able to be in full operation in 1979. At the UGS General Meeting in Athens, while addressing his Greek colleagues, Anthony Chandris noted the following: "I am pleased to confirm that Intercargo has come into being." Intercargo launched its operation on March the 15th of 1980. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start the discussion with an address from the chairman, Mr. Dimitris J. Fafalios. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fafalios, you have the floor.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. All good wishes for 2021, with health above all. The 40 years of Intercargo is primarily a story about people, the members, the seafarers, the secretariat, and the leadership of the association. I would like to extend my warmest, heartfelt thanks to you all, past and present, for your invaluable contributions to laying the foundations and keep Intercargo vibrant and at the forefront of developments in the dry bulk sector. Many thanks to Elias Bisias and his team, who so ably researched our 40-year history and produced such a comprehensive, commemorative book. In addition, they're helping us today with this webinar, for which we thank them. We had originally planned a physical event in September or October of 2020, but we consider the webinar today as a taster. We hope that by the end of 2021 or 2022, we can indeed host a gathering to physically celebrate this important milestone. Ilya, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So at this point, let us start the Q&A session. My first question goes to you, Mr. Chairman, and to you, Mr. Honorary Chairman, Mr. Platsidakis. In 2020, Intercargo celebrated its 40th anniversary. Do you believe that the reasons behind the idea and establishment of Intercargo are still valid today? And how are the major concerns of the dry bulk shipping industry different today than they were during the 1980s and 90s? Mr. Fafalios?
I will ask Mr. Platsidakis to take the first part of the question, which is historically a little bit earlier. Thank you.
I guess you do it, Mr. Fafalios, because I'm a bit older than you, so I may remember better those days. I think that it was a twofold reason at the time. The first one was the exceptionally bad freight market for the dry bulk sector. And that was creating a lot of concern for the sustainability of the dry bulk industry among shipowners. Of course, in today's mind, it may hear a bit unethical in the sense that it was too much of an effort possibly of creating a cartel. But things were different at the time, so we have to tune our minds of what was the public opinion and the regulators' approach 40 years ago. So the freight market was a major concern. But also a major concern was the accident record of the dry bulk shipping. There were far too many fatalities, too many ships lost with cargoes and seamen, and it was a problem that had to be addressed. I wouldn't say that it was the fault of the ship owners themselves. In my opinion, it was mostly the lack of appropriate classification society approach to the problems, and also the very light port state control inspections. And it was something that had to be addressed. And Intercargo came along in order to address the problems of those two sectors, especially the second one. Thank you.
Mr. Fafalios?
Yes, yes. I will echo what John said. Our concerns, the industry's concerns in the 80s and 90s were definitely the losses due to the structural failures of vessels in the late 80s and 90s. And class and IMO rules at the time could not keep up with the increases in ship size and in cargo handling rates. And the corrosive impact of the cargo and water ballast on the ship structure had catastrophic consequences, and many vessels were lost, and unfortunately we had many seafarer fatalities. Damages were also incurred by bulk vessels due to the cargo handling at the terminals, and dry bulk shipping at that time was considered the poor relation within the dry bulk fleet. However, since then, Intercargo has been very instrumental in the development of the BLU code, the bulk loading and unloading code, the IMO SOLAS Chapter 12 amendments, and the accompanying IACS unified requirements. Intercargo assisted a lot in the development of ballast tank coatings, PSPC, also in the enhanced survey program, which has improved bulk carrier safety immensely. And again, in the common structural rules and the harmonized common structural rules and goal-based standards. So Intercargo has been very, very active in transitioning from a very difficult period to, and what John said, with a set of rules from IMO and from CLAS which were not in line with the industry's requirements. And today we have different challenges: environmental challenges, air pollution, ballast water treatment, scrubbers, cargo hold water washings. We have seafarer health and safety concerns, COVID-19, piracy, the MLC. We are also faced with the developing dry bulk management standards, extending beyond ISM, RightShip ratings, and all of this is accompanied by a major willingness of our industry to improve. We talk today about the safety of cargoes, the weaknesses in the IMSBC code at IMO, and Intercargo is constantly monitoring and trying to improve things. Cargo liquefaction, change of phase of cargo, issues with ports and terminals, maritime corruption. Of course, the difference is that today dry bulk shipping is now a dominant sector, the largest part of the world fleet in the number of large vessels and in deadweight terms. But we're faced with poor regulation, where owners continue to be targeted, whilst other stakeholders seem relatively unscathed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My second question goes to the Vice Chairman of Intercargo, Mr. Spyros Tarasis. In your opinion, which are the major forces that will bring about changes for the dry bulk industry 40 years from now? Mr. Tarasis? Unfortunately, we cannot hear you, Mr. Tarasis. Maybe you're in a mute mode.
I hope you can hear me now. Hi. Okay, so I will give again the word to Mr. Fafalios because he's the most knowledgeable guy in the environmental and climate change issues. That will be the first thing that we will have to face going forward from the next year, from this year and the next year. So, Mr. Fafalios.
Fafalios?
Thank you, Spyro. I'm sorry to go ahead again, but yes, environmental and climate change issues will change the face of our business over the next 40 years and beyond. And these are best reflected in IMO's greenhouse gas emission targets for 2050, the impact of alternative fuels in order to meet these regulations, low or zero emission fuels. And then we will also have the impact of regional regulations such as the EU ETS. The move away from fossil fuels can be likened to the transition from sails to steam. Dry bulk vessels will continue to be vital for our world, but their design, operation, and safety will be dominated by greenhouse gas reduction technology. At the same time, dry bulk shipping seafarers will have to adapt to these technologies, and Intercargo will assist its membership with this vital change? Over to you, Spyro.
Well, except from all the environmental rules that are coming forward, we still have safety issues to address, and we will be here. And also we have governance requirements. Ship owners who want to be able to trade will have to take a more professional approach to every aspect of the business. Environmental, safety, and without forgetting also our most valuable assets on board, which are the people on board and ashore, because people are running the ships so far. We need to take decisions that will be different in the future and will concern people also. We are going to deal with autonomous ships, maybe, maybe not. The use of artificial intelligence to support the crew for safer and more efficient running of the ships. And don't forget that we were and we are in a data war. Who has the data and who controls the data is the one that will succeed. So what we need to do is make sure that we get the data from our ships and we take value for it. I think COVID helped us a little bit on that issue. Although our industry is and was digitalized, it became more digitalized. And now I think that we need to build upon this and go forward.
So that was an interesting comment, that we need different decisions for the near future. So let's go on and explore what this future holds for us. And my next question goes to Captain J. Pillai, the former Vice Chairman of Intercargo. What are the most significant geopolitical changes affecting seaborne trade today? We see a lot of different stands from governments and states around the world. Do you expect significant changes in the dry market landscape, with regards, of course, to the biggest importing and exporting countries? Captain J. Pillai?
Yeah, thank you. We have seen the trade wars, the China's Belt and Road Initiative, and then the presidential election in the United States. So the industry took a hit last year, especially in the coal trade with Australia. But again, the shipping is very resilient. If the soybean trade was stopped between China and the United States, the trade picked up from Brazil and Argentina. So that created longer ton miles, which benefited shipping. And now some 70-odd bulk carriers were at anchor in China with coal. That again met the supply and demand gap. So it has benefited shipping. So we see going forward, the election is over now, and the China, I'm pretty optimistic that China and the United States will reach an agreement very soon, and also Australia. I heard from my colleagues that though the China put the brakes on coal ships, but they imported a lot of wheat from Australia. And again, politically friendly nations, this will create a longer ton mile. Like China has waived all the trade tariffs between China and New Zealand. So we think that it's good times are coming for the dry bulk, especially with the vaccines coming. The economies need to get back the momentum. Again, China has controlled reasonably well, and the demand and the production manufacturing in China will go up. So that's all very good signs for the dry bulk market. Elias?
Thank you, Mr. Captain J. Pillai. From Hong Kong, let's move now to South Carolina to Mr. Tom Keenan. My next question goes to you, Mr. Chairman of the Tech Committee. The shipping industry, my next question is, why does the shipping industry actually need association to represent its members' interests? What are the main benefits from the active participation of a shipping company in a shipowning association such as Intercargo. Kalimera, Mr. Keenan.
Good morning. Well, the dry bulk industry in particular needs associations like Intercargo ship owners. Dry bulk industry is a fragmented market around the world with thousands of small ship owners and just inherently do not have a voice in the international forums, especially with the heavy regulations the industry is getting. Even the largest companies have problems with these representations. Associations like Intercargo, they contribute towards reviewing and making new regulations with the view of improving the standards of shipping, improving the safety of shipping, to voice the concerns from all the stakeholders, and to suggest solutions to the industry. The companies and ships that are registered with Intercargo arguably enjoy a quality badge which is widely recognized by the industry as a marker of excellence in ship performance criteria, among other things. Uniting and promoting dry bulk shipping, Intercargo provides a forum where dry bulk ship owners, managers, and operators are kept informed and can discuss and share their concerns on key topics and regulatory challenges, especially in relation to safety, cargoes, and the environment. The association brings its members' positions to the IMO, as well as other shipping and international fora. Experience sharing and consultation with our membership is a very valuable practice on the current issues of concern with cargoes, ports, greenhouse gases, and other new regulations coming into force. Intercargo has been participating as a consultative status with the International Maritime Organizations since 1993. And over the past years has written some 25 position submissions to submit to the Intercargo committees. Our voice is also leveraged by the different industry organizations we participate with, considering the roundtable organizations, which is ICS, Intertanko, and BIMCO, which also enhances the synergies of our industry. We also have another group called the Annual Tripartite Group, which is ship owners, shipyards, and class societies to discuss new regulations, new designs for ships. Today we're faced with, not today, but in the recent times and today, with very large regulations and changes to our ships, designs, operations, and without a discussion of what these things do to ships, it would be impossible without a group like Intercargo to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My next question goes to the Vice Chairman of Intercargo, Mr. Spyros Tarasis, and to you, Mr. Keenan. It's again about political changes in our market, in the dry bulk market. The shipping industry is experiencing a time of intense political and technological turbulence. New environmental regulations and the subsequent new technologies create uncertainty in the industry. In this turbulent environment, what are the main factors that will determine the successful adaptation of dry bulk shipping companies in this new fragile environment for global trade? Mr. Tarasis or Mr. Keenan, who would like to go first?
I will go first.
Yeah.
Give Tom a little bit time to rest. So companies in the new era, they need to make careful decisions about their investments in their fleet and try to see what is there in order to make the correct investment for the future. Maybe modern second-hand ships offer better returns and less risk of becoming obsolete soon. But again, new technologies are not there right now. So who has a clear view of the design of the ship of the future with low emissions, greater efficiency, speed, digitalization, new materials, new engines. Intercargo will be there to help them on that. Who will design the ship of the future? Again, Intercargo will be there. What insights do we have in the commercial viability of the ship, of the new ship designs? We can assist. Who will take the investment risk on these technologies? What is the role of the charterer? What is the role of the shipper in all this? Is LNG a transition fuel or it is here to stay? We are hearing about hydrogen, ammonia, batteries, even nuclear. So all this is things that we are looking into it, we are examining it, we are there to help ship owners to understand, comprehend, and maybe invest in it. Is there enough infrastructure in ports worldwide to facilitate all these changes? No, it's not. Also, we need to take care of this. Even new trades with the new fuels, we are going to need new ships to carry these fuels, hydrogen carriers, ammonia product tankers. Maybe also this is something that we need to consider. Shipping will change, and it will change a lot in the next 10 to 20 years. We need to be there for our members and for ourselves to see how this will go on. And I think that Intercargo will be there as it has been for 40 years right now.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Tom?
Mr. Keenan?
Thank you. I'm not sure if I can add too much to that, Spyro, but I will say this, that all of these regulations or requirements that have come into shipping over the past years, Intercargo is taking a vital role here in examining the proposed regulations, applying it to our bulk carrier type ships, and seeing the impacts. And based on the impacts, we go forward to the proposer with constructive ideas on how best to comply with the proposed regulation and requirement. Going forward, as Spyros said, we don't today know what the fuel or what the ship will look like necessarily. We have a lot of ideas and a lot of concepts, but certainly it will be different. And I guess one of the questions in my mind is if you're building a ship today, the first question should be, what fuel are you going to burn? Because that fuel in the next years is going to be a lot different. And this is one of the projects we are intimately involved with at Intercargo. How to reduce the greenhouse gas on existing ships and how to make the new ship capable of burning whatever it will burn. As I say in some of my meetings, we're trying to discover how to burn water. And once we figure that out, we'll be in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. And now a question that all maritime journalists at least would very much like to ask. Mr. Chairman, this goes to you. Is the EU ETS the best way to decarbonize dry bulk transshipping?
Ilya, thank you for landing me with a hot potato. At this moment in time, whatever we say, we are speculating because we know so little about how EU ETS is going to be implemented. Will it take a classic cap and trade format? If this is the case, this does not at all fit the bulk tramp model. But more importantly, not only does it not fit the bulk tramp model, but it will not reduce emissions sufficiently because it's considered to be a license to pollute. So we believe that the EU ETS, we're not sticking our head in the sand. We don't believe that EU ETS will not apply to deep sea shipping. There are some discussions saying that it should only apply to intra-EU trading in the same way that the airlines obliged the EU to do when the EU tried to apply ETS to the airlines. We think that at the moment a more pragmatic approach would be for an ETS equivalent to exist. That means that an environmental fee that would probably be levied on the inbound cargo, and it would be very much a type of fee that would be similar to the port disbursements. It might be dependent on the length of the inbound leg. The carbon price may have been determined at the beginning of the year, and there's great hope that perhaps together with a robust BIMCO clause, that this environmental fee will be borne by the charterer, who is the commercial operator of the vessel. So at the moment, Intercargo is engaged. It's engaged also through its collaboration with its roundtable partners, ICS, BIMCO, and Intertanko. And at the moment, we are all waiting for definitive decisions, which will probably come in the middle of 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My next question goes to Hong Kong again, to Captain Uttam Kumar Jaiswal, the newly elected Vice Chairman. It is a question about the human element and, of course, about crew changes. So my question is, crew changes have been an issue of concern for all maritime countries and communities. How can the shipping community better prepare itself in such case and in an unfortunate world crisis in case it reoccurs in the near future?
This is a very valid and important question, and no forum or discussion will be complete without addressing this issue. As we all know, the single biggest challenge for ship owners and ship managers post-COVID-19 pandemic has been the crew change, and the industry is still dealing with this crisis. Now, as of date, there are only a few choices of ports where crew change is possible, and where crew change is planned, the flights are restricted. And this has invariably resulted in seafarers serving on board much beyond their contract. So far, we know more than 25% seafarers have exceeded their contract, and more than 5% seafarers are serving more than 12 months. We all agree that this is definitely not an acceptable way to treat seafarers, who are the frontline workers of the maritime industry, carrying 90% of global trade. They remain trapped on board after completion of the contract. Now, with the vaccines coming out, we see a light of hope for conditions to improve, but that will take time. So now Intercargo is very rightly concerned about this serious issue, which has a direct impact on seafarers' mental health and fatigue, affecting shipping safety. Intercargo has raised this issue of concern in various forums, the IMO, the governments, the stakeholders. We thank the United Nations and the IMO for assigning seafarers a key worker status. Now, what we need is the member countries whom we request to adopt the IMO recommendations and recognize seafarers as key workers and have standard protocols in place for seafarers' welfare, including the medical, the vaccination, priority travel. We also need all the stakeholders, the charterers, the shippers, the port authorities, the health authorities, to actively cooperate with ship owners and ship managers to facilitate the smooth movement of seafarers and provide the necessary support as may be required. To address all this, a coalition of 314 companies and organizations have recently signed up to the Neptune Declaration on Seafarer Well-being and Crew Change. This is definitely a positive step towards the changes required, and we want this to proceed without any loss of steam, because we know that once the pandemic is over, people forget it, and all this is being done for preparing for the next crisis also. So we have to get together, all the stakeholders, we have to get together and address this issue to avoid such sort of crisis happening again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. And my final question is, of course, about the post-COVID era. My question goes to Mr. John Platzidakis, the Honorary Chairman, and to you, the Vice Chairman of the Cargo, Mr. Uttar Kumar Jeswal. So my question is, how has COVID-19 affected the dry market, and are you optimistic about the dry market's prospects, at least for the near future? Mr. Platzidakis.
Thank you, Mr. Vicious. Certainly, COVID-19 has affected the shipping sector to various extents. I mean, for indirectly related reasons, the tanker market did well. It's not worth exploring that further at the moment. The cruise market did exceptionally bad. And the dry bulk market was affected by COVID-19. Nevertheless, it was not an unknown incident in the sense that shipping overall, and certainly dry bulk shipping, has been very familiar with the ups and downs of the freight market for various reasons. So COVID-19 was another reason. The bad influence was certainly because of the changes in the demand and supply of the various commodities as a result of the turmoil in world economies. The shipping, though, dry bulk among it, did not do as badly, though, as other sectors. If we consider the airliners, if we consider the cruise business, the hotel business, certainly shipping did much better. And it proved itself that it could perform under those very unforeseen events. The world trade was facilitated because of the good performance of the shipping sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman?
Yes, yeah, very rightly, Mr. John has said that the demand weakness which occurred in 2020, early part of 2020, that was mainly due to the COVID. It was triggered by the COVID-19, and that was compounded by the typical seasonal Chinese New Year weakness, and was further compounded by the excessive net fleet growth in the recent years in the dry bulk, and also in the first half of 2020 that continued towards the first half of 2020. Now, looking forward to 2021, we are optimistic about the prospects in 2021. Reason being, the net fleet growth is reducing, the Chinese demand is strong, the global trade in most key dry bulk commodities seems healthy, and as countries have learned to apply more targeted measures to contain the pandemic and enabled economic activity. Thank you.
Thank you for this comment too. We have a question from one of your members in London, and the question reads, looking over the past 40 years, do you feel that other industry parties such as ports and charterers have taken on adequately the duties as far as safety promotion is concerned? Who would like to answer this question? Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ilias. It's a very valid question. We talked about earlier that often the ship owner himself is being overly regulated, whereas other stakeholders are not regulated in a balanced way. I still believe that. Although ports and terminals are represented at IMO, it is a very small representation. And to be quite frank with you, during discussions with the ports and terminal side, it takes a long time to be able to find terms of reference where we can where both sides can agree on the best way forward for safety and efficiency. Regarding the charterers are very, very important, but they do not have a direct voice at IMO. There are now green shoots of developments, as in the Sea Cargo Charter, on environmental issues, but still the charterers in our industry are almost as dispersed as our ownership is. So you have some very, very large charterers and you have some very, very small charterers who are very, very different from the large players. So I would encourage these organizations to be able to come to the table and discuss, but to be able to do this in a pragmatic way and in a common way in order to improve safety, efficiency, and environmental awareness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another question comes from one of our students following this webinar today. He asks, do you believe that the shipping industry needs further initiatives in order to improve its public image? What actions do you consider as necessary in order to achieve that? And what do you believe that will be the outcomes of those actions? Who would like to discuss the issue of the public image of the shipping industry and, of course, the bulk carrier sector? Mr. Platzidakis.
I would like to say that, yes, the public image is not as good as it should be. The reason, I think, is the fact that it's not closely associated with the public of the various countries. In other words, it does not have the political and social weight as it should be. Of course, shipping is trying to prove itself, but there are some limits. If the consumer himself cannot appreciate that the standards of living of himself and his society are closely associated and have benefited greatly from the excellent performance of shipping, then we cannot do much. Shipping is performing a safe transportation duty in a very cost-effective way, and I think we have to keep on trying to improve the image, but at the end of the day, it's, we want to have listening ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Platzidakis. Captain J. Pillai?
Yeah, I would add to what John said. You know, despite the COVID pandemic, I mean, look at what shipping has done. I mean, the seafarers, and despite what Captain Jaswal just said, the crew change crisis going on with seafarers being on board for more than 12 to 18 months, the shipping is still, you know, doing a fantastic service. And the seafarers, the ship owners, the shipping has not been disrupted at all. So shipping is very efficient, and it is serving the humanity, as it is serving the essential needs of human beings and our well-being. So, I mean, if the public image, I mean, there is no other better times than this COVID, that the shipping is very much essential and efficient, and such a great service. The people are, you know, the seafarers and the ship owners are delivering. Actually, thank you.
Mr. Tarasis.
Just to add a small thing onto this, I think that shipping has come so far in excellence all these past years because it was very competitive. One ship owner wanted to surpass another ship owner, be more efficient, be more quick, be more, and that's why shipping came to what it is today, a big success. I think this should change from now on. I think that because shipping will change, we as ship owners also need to change. We need to come together, we need to discuss with one another ways to go forward and also improve the public image because competition sometimes does not.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you all for the very thought-provoking comments. And before concluding, let's close this panel with a wish. What are your wishes for the new year and for the future of the dry bulk shipping? Let me start with the Honorary Chairman, if I may, Mr. Pratsidakis.
I'd like to wish a COVID-19 free year, a healthy year for all. And also I would like to wish for a good freight market, not because money is good, but because money is needed. In other words, because of the upcoming regulations for the environment and the protection of the environment, money has to be invested in shipping on existing vessels and on new buildings. And that can be done only with a rewarding freight market. This is my second wish. Thank you.
Captain J. Pillai.
I totally agree that the money has to be there because we have a lot of challenges and we have a lot of regulations to comply with. And I also wish that there is more empathy and compassion for the human element at sea. That means we have to make sure our seafarers are treated with respect, dignity, and compassion. So my true wish is more and more governments and more stakeholders in the industry, they will walk the talk. I mean, we have a lot of protocols, the key worker status by the UN, the IMO, which was done middle of last year, but we are still talking about the crew on board for more than 12 months. So we need that empathy, and we need people to walk the talk. I mean, not just keep talking about the walk. I mean, so that's my wish. And our hats off to the seafarers who do a fantastic work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pillai. Mr. Tom Keenan. You have to unmute your...
Of course, my wish would be for a healthy year and future. I mean, this pandemic has created all sorts of problems in every aspect of what we do. I would like that, of course, to see that the freight markets return to some reasonable amount, and that we can, together with all our regulators, come up with reasonable solutions to this greenhouse gas dilemma which we are now facing. We have goals that are difficult to achieve, and we have to take a practical approach and work out the best way, as we in history have always done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. Mr. Vice Chairman, Captain Jaiswal.
Yes, I have two wishes, and the first one is that the key worker status for the seafarers. We wish that all the countries recognize that in the true sense, not just on paper. And the second wish is for ship owners that they don't order dry bulk new buildings, but feel free to buy modern second-hand ships. That will position us all better to meet the IMO's greenhouse gas goals, the zero carbon ships when they become available. meanwhile correcting oversupply in our sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Jaiswal, for a statement that will make headlines tomorrow at the Maritime Press all over the world. Vice Chairman, Mr. Tarasis, your comment, please.
I will just add to all of the gentlemen. I just wish that we are able to think out of the box and be open and embrace change as it will be big in the future. And let's trust and give the new generation a chance to bring new ideas on board.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. And of course, the final closing remark goes to you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dimitris Fafalios.
Thank you, Elias. And my wishes come in three sections. My wishes for 2021, for the future of the industry, and for Intercargo itself. And I have to thank my esteemed colleagues for capturing most of my wishes, but I will just add a few extra ones which I came up with. First of all, for 2021, unimpeded crew changes to be allowed worldwide as they were before, and all crew to have access to medical assistance. The world, as Uttam said, the world should really confirm seafarers to be key workers with actions and not words. The freight rates and, of course, the wishes for health worldwide, I reiterate. For our future of our dry bulk industry, better regulations, both worldwide and local, better class rules, receiving the recognition that the dry bulk industry deserves as a vital transportation sector and as the largest segment of the world's fleet. And also, by the way, we're the best for greenhouse gas emissions. Better seafarer standards, dry bulk management standards, and more objective port state control. Better standards for dry bulk ports and terminals, and better shipbuilding standards for bulk carriers. And my wishes for Intercargo. I'd like more vessels to join Intercargo. I would like a growing but lean secretariat fully attuned to its members' requirements and always hands-on as it is today. The ability for Intercargo to address even more dry bulk shipping industry issues. That's a very warm and heartfelt wish. And I wish that we carry on with a vibrant membership where principals are active in both their companies and at Intercargo. And finally, for all of our seafarers, smooth seas, trouble-free ports and anchorages, and I wish them above all good health. Thank you.
On my behalf, thank you all for your participation. Mr. Chairman from Athens, thank you for participating. Mr. Vice Chairman from Faliro, thank you for participating. Captain Jaiswal, thank you for participating from Hong Kong. Mr. Kina, thank you for participating from South Carolina. Mr. Platsidakis from Athens, and Mr. J. Pillai, again from Hong Kong. We thank all of you for this great effort. We wish happy birthday to Intercargo. And of course, we want to thank all Intercargo members and ListenusNet younger generation viewers for watching today. I wish you all no more interesting times, but instead prosperous, safe, and stable years ahead. Happy birthday, Intercargo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The shipping industry is vital for the prosperity of people all around the world, as it transports approximately 90% of global trade. Dry bulk carriers account for 43% of the world fleet and carry out approximately 55% of the global transport work, while their average age is half of that of the global commercial fleet. They are the workhorses of international shipping, as they serve essential needs such as food and energy supply. Dry bulk shipping is necessary for maintaining and enhancing living standards in both developed and less developed economies.